This week, WGBY and PBS Nationally in the Frontline program are bringing you the premiere of League of Denial, the NFL's concussion crisis. Now, whether it's in the NFL or any contact sport at any level, professional, college, high school, even younger, head injuries, specifically concussions, are a serious problem. They are a real concern for athletes, and in the case of student athletes, their parents. Here to talk about this with us, Zachary Marowitz is a neuropsychologist at Baystate Medical Center's Sports Concussion Clinic, and Jay Fraga from Belchertown is an athlete and coach, a serious BMX racing competitor who quit the sport after suffering multiple concussions. He founded the knockoutproject.org to get information out to others about the danger of concussions. Gentlemen, thank you both for being with us. Dr. Marowitz, let me ask you, how serious a problem are you seeing in terms of concussions in athletes? And I presume you're seeing mainly younger athletes, high school and maybe even younger college athletes. How bad is the situation?
Well, the numbers for a long time were thought to be relatively small, somewhere around 300,000 per year in the United States associated with sports. But that was with a poor definition that didn't include loss of consciousness. Once that was rectified, the numbers skyrocketed to somewhere around 3.8 million per year just in the United States. And that I still think is probably a little on the low end.
And when you figure in the population of athletes,
right.
I mean, 3.8 is more than 1% of the whole population.
Right.
Not everybody's this kind of competitive athlete, so an awful lot of people are suffering a lot of head injuries.
That's right, yeah.
Jay Fraga, let me tell you, or ask you to tell us a little bit of your story. You told me, I think you suffered 9 concussions over a period of time?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm at 10 right now if we're talking about official numbers, but I've been fighting post-concussion syndrome since 2011. I was diagnosed. Probably had been fighting it for a year prior to that. That was just the official time, and it's brutal. So I had never taken concussion seriously. I sort of made the bed that I was lying in, so to speak, and there was a great deal of regret about doing that to yourself and putting your family through those things. So the Knockout Project was born, I guess, through my experience and not wanting others to know what that was like.
Mm-hmm. Doctor, let me ask you here, and I can tell, doctor probably wouldn't comment this without permission, but Jay had told me he has in fact been treated at the Baystate Sports Concussion Center. He has seen Dr. Marowitz, although we're not going to ask him to comment on your particular case for your own privacy. But doctor, how common is the kind of thing Jay Fraga talks about? You know, you're in denial. You take multiple injuries, but you love what you do. You want to compete. You want to be the best. So, you know, I'm going to play through. I'm going to play hurt.
Right, yeah, I mean that's one of the most common things you come up against when working with athletes is they're taught all throughout their lives in the training from very young in their sport all the way through is that, you know, something hurts a little, you keep going. And in many ways that's admirable, but unfortunately in this type of injury that actually works against you and ends up causing more problems long term.
And Jay, I'm not going to ask you to tell any secrets, but I know you say, you know, a lot of people who've had a lot more injuries and they just keep going and going for all kinds of reasons.
I think that the mind of a competitor is that we could write our own book on that. But I think that when you talk about mind over matter and athletes who are very successful, they believe in themselves to get over any hurdle. And so while that's a necessary facet to have as part of your psyche to do well in sports, it completely goes against the grain, and it works against you when it comes to maybe admitting that you have an injury. I know friends who have had blurred vision from an impact and have convinced themselves that it was maybe sweat running in their eyes. And it isn't a conscious thing; it's a subconscious thing. So,
yeah, Doctor, let me ask you. Talk a little bit about what we're really talking about. And you mentioned a minute ago, you said once definitions were broadened a little to include loss of consciousness, that really kind of expanded what the injury is about. And what literally is happening to the brain, to the body when we say a concussion, a concussive injury?
Sure. So a concussion occurs when a force is transmitted to the brain. And it can be either through a direct contact to the brain or as contact somewhere else in the body, just causing force to travel through the brain. And it causes the brain to shake and rotate in a violent way. And this leads to kind of unleashes a cascade of events at the cellular level that essentially kind of takes these chemicals that you have in your brain called neurotransmitters and displaces them. They end up in the wrong places. And this imbalance really can be quite damaging to the brain and leads to symptoms like the headaches, the dizziness, the blurred vision, emotional problems, sleep disturbances, attention and memory problems.
Can we do things to fight it in terms of the equipment and the safety procedures? There's a lot of talk now in the football world about the guardian cap and that sort of thing. And not to attack a particular company or a particular team or whatever. People are trying it and hoping, waiting to see it. Jay, you right away shook your head. And what's your? Let's talk to an athlete before we get to the doctor.
Well, from what I know, and really the reason the Knockout Project exists is to say that really what I have found out, and the biggest key point to healing from these things is that the only thing that will take care of you in most cases is physical, cognitive, and emotional rest. And that means essentially planting yourself in a dark room after you've been diagnosed with a concussion for a number of days until you're not symptomatic anymore. And it's those of us who have sort of said, no, we'll be fine in 2 weeks without doing anything. And so you feel this sort of brain drain. You feel, for lack of a better word, hungover. And so you may notice that you wear down as the day goes on, but really it's important to shut everything off.
Chill out. But doctor, let me ask you, and I'm not asking you to attack and endorse a particular product out there, but go where you want. What's your sense? I mean, is more being done?
I mean, if there's a way to come up with something on the outside of your skull that's going to keep your brain from rattling around inside and twisting inside your skull, I'm all for it, and I know companies are trying desperately to find ways to protect it, both as a business move and also trying to protect these people that participate in these sports. But it's really hard. There's a lot of myths about mouth guards protecting you from a concussive injury. It doesn't. It will protect your jaw and your teeth, and even the best helmets. Really, the best you can do is just make sure your helmet is well conditioned and it fits right, and you've put it on correctly. They're really good at keeping you from fracturing your skull, but there's not a whole heck of a lot they can do to protect you against concussions.
2010, Massachusetts puts into effect the Youth Sports Safety Law. Basically, student athletes, parents, coaches, school athletic directors, and school nurses and a school or team physician every year have to have some kind of a concussion or head injury educational updates. Students and families are required to tell a coach when the start of the season if this student has had past injuries. If you're knocked out or appear disoriented now, you have to come out of the game. You can't go in under state law again until you get medical clearance, a licensed medical professional. Is this helping?
I think so. I mean, you certainly see much greater awareness, both on coaches and student athletes, even referees, alerting coaches that I think this kid doesn't look right and I saw him get hit, because they're in the best position often to see these things. I wish they would even expand it to all the teachers. I know they have enough on their plate though, but because they're seeing the kids in the classroom after the injuries. So it's created a lot more awareness, and therefore it's being identified more, and that's where I think we're starting to see the true magnitude of this issue and how many there really are.
Jay Fraga, how about from where you sit? The 2010 youth sports law in the state, is that getting people to take it a little more seriously? Or when you're talking to parents and students, maybe even coaches, unfortunately, sometimes is it just, hey, we're out there to play and we play hard and you play hurt and you win? And is it making a difference, do you think?
I think it's tough to tell. You're not able to see the numbers, but I'm aware of there's a set of people who are old school and maybe don't give it too much credence. And so I think that some of those numbers get missed.
Doctor, let me ask you, as we wind down on time here, is it fair to say the byword for somebody like you who looks at this from a professional medical standpoint, the byword really has to be, when in doubt, take them out of the game, get them out of practice?
Yeah, I mean, that's baked into the law now. It's one of the things, if there's even a suspicion, even if you're not sure, you're done for the day. If it ends up being you're not concussed, hey, great, sorry you missed a practice or a game, but you're right back in. If you did, boy, we maybe did the best thing we could possibly do to reduce the complexity and the duration of your concussive injury by immediately starting to manage it the correct way.
Well, Dr. Zachary Marowitz, Jay Fraga, thank you both for being with us.
Sure.
Thank you.
Pleasure.